Okay, now follow directions in the video, okay? Here's the first thing you got. You have here what are called similar triangles. They're the same shape but different size. You need to, you know that you got a 3 and a 5 here, you got a 7 and an X here. So the way to solve for X is to set up a proportion. And what you're going to do is look at the X triangle. You're going to go X over 7. You can also go 7 over X too. It doesn't matter. But when I look at the other triangle, X would be most similar to 5. Okay? So 5 has to be across from X, and then the 3 has to be across from 7. Then we cross multiply and divide. Okay? So 7 times 5 divided by 3 is how that needs to go into the calculator. So I take 7 times 5 divided by 3, 11.6 repeating. Just put that above the X. There you have it. Okay, next problem. X and 3, I pair them up, and then X is similar to 6, and 3 is similar to 9. Now, you can take 3 times 6 and divide it by 9. You can also think of 3 times 3 being 9, and what times 3 would be 6, okay? So, it would be 2. Okay, next one. X paired with 5. And then X is similar to 18. And 5 is similar to 7.5. Put 7.5, that's a decimal. So I cross multiply and divide. I take 5 times 18 divided by 7.5. I come up with 12. So X equals 12. Okay, next one. X over 36. So what is similar to X? 12. What side is similar to 36? Yeah, that makes no sense. Get that 36 out of there. I put the wrong number there. That's my fault. Okay. We're going to go ahead and call that a 30. Okay. So 36 would be... Shoot. No, that isn't right. Get rid of that problem. Okay. So you can kind of see what you're doing, okay? I go to the back side and complete those problems right there. Okay, pause the video and do those 4 on the back. Now the rest of this video, you're just going to take notes, okay? That will be assigned. I'm grading it just like I would an assignment. It says solve, because this is how a test would look like over the proportions. Solve for the variable, you're solving for X, okay? Negative 3 over X equals 2 over 3. So I look at the X and there's nothing happening to it, so I can use cross multiply and divide, okay? It's cross multiply and divide, that's how you, okay? So I multiply negative 3 times 3, and then I divide by 2. And I am going to get a negative answer, but that's okay. So negative 3 times 3 divided by 2 is negative 4.5. Okay, now the next one, there are things, you got 2 X's for 1. That's a dead giveaway that you can't use cross multiply and divide. You have to use A, B, C, D. Remember, A is diagonal from B, C is diagonal from D. So you're going to line up the equation with 2 parentheses on each side. On one side, we're going to find the product of A and B. On the other side, the product of C and D. So A is an expression. It's 2x plus 1. And B is just a value of 4. Now over here, C is just 5, but D then is an expression of x plus 2. Now, if you got a minuses, make them plus negative. We don't have any. You want a 1's in front of the x's, and now you have to use the distributive property. So the rainbows spring from the 4, the number all by itself, okay? So equals, so first I take 4 times 2x, and then I take 4 times 1. So that's going to be 8x plus 4 on that side. The parentheses are now gone. Okay, now on the other side, the rainbow is spraying from the number by itself to 5. So I'm going to take 5 times 1x and 5 times 2 separately. So that's going to be 5x plus 10. Now we solve the equation. Now, we're not ready for the wall yet because there's 2 different x's. So I mark the smaller one and get that to a 0. So I put 5x, 5x. Don't make the line between the 5x and the 5x. This is not a division thing. So on top you got a positive, so that means we need to minus it to be able to cross it off. And then I line up my equals, and now I have 3x plus 4 equals 10. Now I can do the dot circle and the wall. So there's a 4 there, okay? So I put 4, 4. It's positive, so we minus 4. Line up your equals. You got 3 times x, and then 10 minus 4 is 6. Okay, then I see we got times, so I do the opposite, which is divide. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. Because 3 times what? 6, it's 2. Okay, now with the percent problems. I'm going to use percent over 100% and then is over of. So do either one of these numbers have a percent? Yes, 25 does. So we have 25%. After the word of, I see 144. So 144 is my of. And then x is what I'm trying to figure out, my is. So I cross multiply and divide. Remember, I'm going to be taking 25 times 144 divided by 100. It's got to be done just like that. Okay, I got 36. So put 36, and that's your answer. It doesn't have a percent sign. It only has a percent sign if it comes from here. You know all the percents. Okay, next one. 80% of what number is 20? So I have 100%, and then I line up my 80%, or percent is, and then of. Now, again, we had a number with a percent, so it's 80%. Then after of, it says what? So x is the of. We don't know the of. And then 20 is the is. So I cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to take 100 times 20 divided by 80. Okay, so 100 times 20 divided by 80 is 25. So 25 is now my x. I found it. 20 over 25 equals 80 over 100. Okay, what percent of 36 is 96? I'm going to get a weird answer here. So I put 100%, but follow the same rules, and then is and of. So do either one of these numbers have a percent sign? They do not. So x is my percent. You don't know your percent. After of, I see 36. 36 is my of. I know that's kind of weird because you think of the of as being larger, but this one isn't. You get 96. Now you're going to cross multiply and divide. You're going to take 100 times 96 divided by 36. And I get 266.6 repeating. Now I'm going to get a percent that's pretty high because 96 out of 36 on a test is like awesome, okay? So it's a good percent. Okay, next problem, number 6. Find the length of side x. The two triangles are similar. You just did these, okay? Use proportions. X over 8. Now x is similar to what side? 14. 8 is similar to 10. Okay. So now I can cross multiply and divide. 8 times 14 divided by 10. Okay, 11.2. And you can get a decimal. That's okay. Okay, number 7. Convert 4 meters to feet. 1 meter equals 3.28 feet. We had an assignment on this where we used proportions to solve. So this right here is one of the ratios. 1 meter is 3.28 feet. Now over here I put my labels in the same order, meters and feet. Now we have 4 meters. We know how many meters we have, but we don't know how many feet we have. That's X. So I cross multiply and divide. So 3.28 times 4 divided by 1. I got 13.12. So you have 13.12 feet. That's how many feet are in 4 meters. Okay, now the next problem says Chad and Jack are painting a house, but I want you to go to this one because I want to do the Chad and Jack problem after I do this one. This is a little simpler, it builds up better. A student can read, that should say he can read, 7 pages of a book in 10 minutes. How many pages of the book can the student read in 30 minutes? Now, if he reads for 0 minutes, he's not going to be able to read any pages, okay? So with those 0 zeros at the top, I don't make the line. I don't make the 3 boxes with the line. Having a 0 with another 0 between the 2 units that gives me the green light to set up my proportions. Okay. Now, you can fill out the rest of this. You got 7 pages in 10 minutes. That's a ratio. And then we have 30 minutes, but I don't know how many pages. Okay, so X. Remember to put your time label on the bottom. Okay, your time has to go on bottom. If there is a time. If there's no time, it doesn't matter. Okay. So the ratio we know is that he can takes him 10 minutes to read 7 pages. What we're trying to figure out is 30 minutes, how many pages. So I cross multiply and divide. I take 7 times 30 divided by 10. I got 21. So 21 pages in 30 minutes. Okay, now I go back to the Chad and Jack problem. Chad and Jack are painting a house. Chad can paint 1 house in 6 hours. Jack can paint 1 house in 5 hours. If these guys want to paint 2 houses for the day, how many hours will it take? So look at these tables. 0 hours, I would get 0 houses painted. 0 hours, 0 houses painted. So with these zeros, if at the beginning of the table is nothing but zeros, that gives me the green light to make proportions. So now I fill these out. He can paint 1 house in 6 hours. So 1 house, 6 hours. Now I go to the other table because that's a different person. He can paint 1 house in 5 hours. So 5 hours, 1 house. Now in between the two, they're going to be working together. So you're going to put in between them 2 houses. Okay? X hours. Now you have 2 tables. So you're going to add another ratio into the proportion. Okay? Now it's important that all these ratios, you put the hours on the bottom. So hours, 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 and then houses, houses, houses. So for ratio I know it takes him 6 hours to paint 1 house. The other one, it takes him 5 hours to paint 1 house, so 1 house in 5 hours. Between the two, they have to do 2 houses, and I don't know how many hours. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, what I have to do first is add those fractions together, okay? I'm going to add 1/6 plus 1/5. It's not 2 over 11, okay? To add fractions, you have to look at a multiplication table and get the common denominators. So 1ABC6, or the calculator if you know how to add fractions on the calculator. 1ABC6 plus 1ABC5 is 11 over 30, okay? So they can do together 11 houses in 30 hours. That's their simplified ratio together. And then I still have 2 over x. Now I can multiply and divide. I will take 30 times 2 divided by 11. Now I'm going to get a weird looking answer, but that's okay. I'm going to round it. Hours can be a decimal, so I'm going to put 5.45 hours. Okay. Okay, so the hours are 5.45. Hours, you can have part of an hour, so that's what a decimal is. It's part. Okay, number 11. I spent 20% of my paycheck on groceries. That's the part. I make $3,000 in a month. How much of that will I spend on groceries? Okay, so the part means I use a proportion. I take my 20% and put it over 100%. But instead of is over of, I think in terms of part total. Now, to know what goes where, you got to define the part by what I've circled. The part is on groceries. Now, how much money was spent on groceries? It's either $3,000 or you don't know it. I don't think we know it because it says how much of that will I spend on groceries. So I don't know how much the part I'm spending on groceries. I know the total is $3,000. Now I cross multiply and divide. I will take 20 times 3,000 divided by 100. Okay, I got 600. So X equals $600. Okay, you have just found the part you're spending on groceries. Okay, number 12. 1/5 of the clowns in the circus had red noses. If 40 clowns had red noses, how many clowns are there still? Now, you got to focus here. You're not going to put 100 because it's not a percent, it's a fraction. And no, you don't have to write it as a percent. You're just going to put 1/5 here, and a fraction like a percent is part over the total. Now, to know where the 40 goes, you got to label your part. Part is what had red noses. Now, I'm going to ask myself how many had red noses. It's either 40 or I don't know it. 1/5 of the clowns in the circus had red noses. 40 clowns had red noses. How many clowns are there altogether? So how many had red noses? That would be 40. And I'm finding the total. So I take 5 times, and all together in the question means you don't know your total. Okay, so 5 times 40 divided by 1 is still 200. So there are 200 clowns total, 40 have red noses, that's 1/5. Okay, number 13. A town's population has increased by 5%. At that point, the population is 12,500 people. How many people were in town before the percent increase? Now, this is not a part percent, okay? It's an increase by percent. So the way to solve these is to take before times the percent equals after. But in that equation, you have to take 100% and increase it by 5%, which means we add 5%, so that's 105%. Now, when you're doing that, you'll need to move the decimal twice. So it's before times my percent equals my after. So my percent is a 1.05. Now I have circled before, that means you don't know the before, so that's X, and the after is going to be 12,500. Now, you're not going to multiply, you're going to divide here to find what X is. So when you divide, remember to divide correctly. 12,500 is the dividend, that comes first, and 1.05 is the divisor. You're going to get kind of a bizarre looking answer. But I'm talking about people, so I don't need to put anything after the decimal. I'm going to put 11,904 or 11,905. Either one's okay. You can put 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. So that's how many people you had, and then it increases, and then you're at 12,500. But you're going back and finding how many you had before. Okay, 14. 2 cars travel for the same amount of time. One car averages, there should be an S there, 70 miles per hour, while another car averages 60 miles per hour. If the faster car travels 140 miles further, how many miles did each car travel? Okay, now when I see these time, distance, speed, I'm going to make that box we made yesterday, where I split it in 2, and then I make 4 columns out of it. And I'm going to put fast and slow. Okay, so and then I put speed, you can put S if you want, distance, put D, and time. Now, this is the only one of the 3 formulas I need, okay? Because the speeds I have, that's the miles per hour. You got 70 miles per hour, and you got 60 miles per hour. See, 70's fast, 60's slow. Cross them out. Now, the distance traveled, do we know how many miles each car traveled? We don't, so we're going to put X and X. But what I do know about the distance is that the faster car, this one, went 140 miles further. I still don't know how far it traveled, but I know it went 140 miles further, so I add 140 to that X right there. Now the time. Now the way I express the time is to use distance divided by speed. Now I don't have a distance, I just have an algebra expression. So I put X plus 140 on top, and then the speed is 70. Then distance X, speed 60. Now set them equal to each other. We have X plus 140 over 70 equals X over 60. Okay, you got to use A, B, C, D. So equals. Okay, so I got A times B, C times D. Okay, so A is the expression X plus 140, and B is 60. C is just the expression X, and D is 70. Now I put ones in front, and over here with the 3 numbers, I apply my rainbows springing out from the 60. So 60 times 1x would be 60x. Remember, times the 60 by the number with the x first. And 60 times 140 is 8,400. Over here, you just take 1 times 70, and you write 70, but you connect an x to that product because one of the factors had an x. They both have an x, then it goes x to the second, but that doesn't come up for a long time in here. So you got x's, you're not ready for the wall, okay? So I mark out my smaller one and put 60x and 60x. Now up there's a positive, so we need to minus. So I line up my equals, and we have 8,400. And 70 minus 60 is 10x. So now I can do the dot in the wall. Now, we don't add or subtract because there's nothing outside of the 10 times x. I see times, I'm dividing. So 8,400 divided by 10 is going to be 840. So I put 840 in the first answer. Now to find the second answer, we just add to it. We have found the distance our slower car travels. The faster car, I take 840 plus 140. And that's 980. Okay? Now in that single packet, this is actually very or actually, never mind, I'm not gonna give that today.